when you actually do a proper EICR and you accompany it there with some video evidence of what you can see, some video evidence of what you've recorded with a thermal camera, all of a sudden, you're actually giving what the end client needs a lot more quantifiable information.
Hello and welcome to another CEF Tech Talking podcast. You've got myself, Darren, here as usual. Storm, I'm here all the time, me.
You're always there, and you're in the middle.
Yeah, and
today you're in the middle. I'm on your side, always your
by
wingman.
my side, always.
Yes.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by the one, the only. It's Malcolm. Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Not just Malcolm, no, but you're just not just Malcolm. You are Mr. Super Rod, aren't you?
He's got
Careful how you say that.
He's got it on his arm. He's a super rod man.
I am. Proudly so. So.
Now, that's where we first met, was Super Rod years, wasn't it? So you were doing lots for Super Rod, but it's not just, you do lots more, don't you, over there?
Yeah.
Klein tools and bits and bobs like that. It's grown a bit, hasn't it, since them years ago?
Just a bit. There used to be me, a van.
Is that what it was?
That was about it, yeah. There was only a couple of us.
Now I remember at Tech Talks, sorry, not at Tech Talks, when we used to go and do the Elex shows, do you remember them? You used to give a certain amount of rods away for the first 10 people.
I remember that, yeah.
And our stand, for a previous employer, our stand used to be next to yours, and I used to play the Benny Hill theme music to the people that used to run when the show was open to get to his stand to get the freebies.
It was a great way to start the show. Everybody's set up, everybody's had a long day, they've had an early start.
Yeah.
It was just such a buzz starting it off like that and everything. And what we started to do, to be fair, we didn't give them away after a while. We took like a £5 charity donation and everything, just to make it a little bit worthwhile and a bit of fun. But it just got the show off with a bit of a kick, didn't it?
It worked.
I can remember when Super Rod was the new product.
I know.
remember talking about Super Rod.
Well, you gave it an award, didn't you? You gave it an award at some event.
I did. Presented an award.
It's funny when we have that conversation about how long ago it is. And we've got people say, I've been using Super Rod for 30, 40 years. We only started making them in 2000. So
That's exactly right.
and people will have arguments. No, it's longer than that.
It just feels longer than that.
It is what it is. But
it was Super Rods, wasn't it? That's how it started.
So Super Rod was where it all started. It wasn't founded by myself. It was founded by a guy called Bob Harrison. Okay. And I came on board a few years later and everything. Still one of my best friends and everything, but he was an eccentric character who considered himself unemployable. Right. And so he kind of found a job in our industry. There's a story there.
That's how we all got here, isn't it? So it was mainly Super Rods, and then Klein. What's the deal with Klein then?
Right, well, if we go back, early days of Super Rod, first thing when I got involved in everything, we wanted to dominate the UK market and everything. We'd listened so much to what the installers want. I think that's the secret of what we always did. We listened and then took away those ideas. So, the first 10 years of the history, we virtually never left the UK. Yep. So, things like Elex, working with you guys previously, stuff like that. It was all about what's missing. What else do you need to make the life easier and everything? And once we got to that stage, I'm quite a basic lad, and I thought, right, we need to start looking at export. But, France is close, but my French isn't that great. My German's even worse.
Oh, right.
So
limiting a bit, isn't it?
So it was a choice of dealing with the Australians or the Americans.
And who won?
Both.
Oh, you did it.
But, so I spent some time in Australia, launching the product over there, and then literally went into the US, literally with a bag full of products, hire a car at the airport, and literally started driving around.
And was there anything like it around at the time? Was
No.
it completely innovatory, was it?
No, it blew my mind. Everybody sort of looks at that archetypal sort of, how do you break America? You're into music. How many bands try and break America and everything? And and literally it was. I remember getting there. It was just after we'd won the Queen's Award for Innovation, so that would have been around about 2008. And the idea behind getting that award was, if I can get the Queen signing off on my marketing messages and saying I'm a decent bloke, I've got a chance somebody's going to actually listen to me when I get to America. In the UK, there were maybe less interest, but in America it was a bit of a
big seller,
bit of a big ticket. So, I literally got round, went onto some construction sites, went into wholesalers. I'd just literally walk into a wholesaler and say, "Can I stand on your counter for half an hour?" And they just some limey turns up, sounds a bit different, looks a bit different to the rest of us. In Florida, I was the only one not wearing shorts.
Oh,
Thank God I wasn't wearing a tie. They would have really had some fun with me. And I literally just, started, again, asking the questions. This is something we developed.
At this point, were you just building up export lines? Did you have product with you? You were demoing it? If they wanted it, you couldn't provide it at that point.
Never say no to a customer when he says he wants
the
your
boot was
product.
full, was it?
No, I literally just had my demo samples. So the first actual sale I made, I was down in Charleston in North Carolina, and I did my demos, and a guy says, "I need them now." And I said, "Look, all I've got is my one set." And he said, "I'm travelling around for another 3 weeks demoing, so you can't have my set." He said, "Well, where can I get one?" And he actually said, "CES, they're a bunch of limeys as well, aren't they?" You've got to get used to this non-PC sort of description. So literally, he went into a local CEF, are called CEF, City Electrical Supply in the US. He went to one of them, told him a story about this crazy English guy that he'd just met, and he said, "You've got to get me these kits." And so he obviously found his contacts in the UK. He paid to air freight 3 kits over for his team. And then I remember I didn't know all this was happening because, again, I had no distribution set up. I didn't understand how distribution was set up in the US. There was a lot of agencies, things like that. So I came back, real positive responses, and I was due to go back into that region about 3 months later, where another wholesaler had expressed a lot of interest. But it was like, signing a very complicated agreement. It was taking.
You need Liz Truss to negotiate your trade deal. That's what you need. That would have made it a lot easier.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Everything. We'll cut through everything.
I wanted to last longer than 6 weeks.
Longer than cabbage. You've got to make it longer than the cabbage.
I should imagine you open a few more doors now, though. See, the name Super Rod just walks in the door and they go, "What have you got?"
Yeah, I think, and again, we always start by listening, seeing what people need, and I think how ultimately the relationship with Klein started. We were at a trade show in Boston. Now, for Boston, for those who don't know, it's a very unionised part of the country.
It is,
and the electrical trade is very unionised. And I remember walking into the exhibition, and we're a small company, and I had my own trolley with my stuff. I got stopped at the door. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to put up my stand." "No, you're not." "Have you got a union card?" I said,
"Oh, no.
No,
not."
"You're not putting any stand up." Oh. And I thought, this is a good way to do my first exhibition in the US and everything. So anyway, we negotiated our way around that, put the stand up, and we were there to show to all the great and the good. We'd done a few of these shows as time went on, and one of the product managers from Klein came up and they asked me the question. They said, "Is it true what they're saying about your product?" And I said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "One, it's very useful, but the big thing the Americans wanted to know was, does it splinter?" And I said, "No, it doesn't, because you'll see a lot of people who've made a cheaper product make it out of fiberglass. Yeah. Anybody who's worked with fiberglass, you're all nodding your head now.
Yeah, we've been there, done it.
Don't want to go there."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's perfectly true." And "How do you do that?" And I said, "Well, that's my KFC recipe sort of thing."
Yeah.
And to be fair, they phoned me up a couple of weeks after the show, and they offered to fly me out to the US. And I said, "Well, no, I'm coming out anyway. I'll fly myself out." So I flew out to Chicago. I remember leaving Heathrow. There was like a millimetre of snow, and Heathrow was threatening to close.
That's standard.
I landed in 1.5 meters of snow in Chicago. I think the pilot did a handbrake turn.
That's the product solution you need to do. Something that can keep airports open when there's 1 millimetre of snow. That'd be really good. So, Malcolm, so these rods, I mean, the rods were the fundamental basis of everything. On the last series of Tech Talks, we were giving away one of your fab new cameras that goes on the end of the rods. Yeah. But today you've brought us another product, which is pushing innovation.
This is the Klein side of the business, isn't it? And you and I, in previous tech talks we've delivered, mate, we've been talking about thermal imaging.
Yeah.
And you know the big bits of kit, they were quite large.
They were at that time and quite difficult to read, and
Now, what I've got here, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that can see or looking on the web page, look how small this is. It's got clips. I'm assuming it sits on your keys or something like that. But this is the box. This is the toolbox that everyone wants, mate. This is it. Now, for those of you who can't see, it's about what? It's about 4 centimetres
half a
by
cigarette
7
packet in it.
centimetres.
Is that sort of
It's the
size?
size of a matchbox.
Oh,
Yes,
size of a matchbox.
there you go.
Good point.
It's a matchbox.
Good point, yeah.
There you are. So it's a matchbox that sits on a key ring. But inside,
It's another world.
I mean, look at that. That is thermal imaging
A little
camera.
attachment sits in the bottom of an iPhone with the classic lightning connector, and then there's a lens on there.
How does it do it then? Come on.
You're asking the wrong person.
You're launching this bit of kit. How on earth do they get it all in a device that attaches to an iPhone? Now, first of all, the question is it only iPhone?
No, they do an Android as well.
Oh, that's the iPhone version,
Wow,
is it?
right.
Okay.
So they do one version of each. So and the same sort of size, I assume, then, isn't it?
Exactly the same.
It's just a different connector that's on it.
Now,
Wow.
thermal image cameras have to be quite accurate. So that presumably is producing the accurate image, which is then just using the display of the phone that it's plugged into.
Yeah, and again, you can fully record it on the screen yourself. You can get your accurate temperature measure as well.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Because now,
Yeah,
when
that's
you
the
look at
bit.
thermal imaging, there's a couple of sets that you need to think about if you're going into it. One of them is just to quantify, so to say that there is something there, so you have found a hotspot, and the other one is to actually to quantify it and tell you exactly what it is.
So it's to qualify and quantify, isn't it?
That's
it,
the
yes.
bit. You've got to get them
You can
two.
see differentials of colour.
So this
tell where
does that.
hotspots
This actually
are.
tells you what the hotspot is giving out, does it?
It will tell you what the hotspot's coming out. I think what you've got to look at it is take a step back and look at it from the customer's point of view. And what do they want to achieve? Now, if I was working, in a processing plant or where I needed, really detailed the work a trained thermographer would do, this is not where he would start.
No.
But if you look at, even these people with a piece of kit that costs 10 grand,
Yeah.
a vast majority of their work is looking at differentials.
That's what they're looking for.
Identifying the
They want to find the
problem.
problem before it becomes a big.
They're looking at the variants.
Yeah.
And, both the Super Rod and the Klein philosophy is looked at what matters to the consumer and what do they need to do? What are we delivering? Ignore the fact it's a thermal image camera. What is it doing? And it's clearly identifying differentials to identify a fault, identify a problem, see where something's wrong, see where something's right. And everything when we design, and Darren, you asked the question, how do we do it? I don't know. The answer to that is we employ some very, very smart people.
So where do you see the market? This is not for serious thermography, is it? This would be for people who need it as an adjunct, maybe for an EICR, looking at checking out hotspots in an installation.
100%.
Maintenance. I'm thinking maintenance. If you're a maintenance crew and you're sending your engineers out there to complete maintenance, something like this that attaches to a device that they've already got, that's great.
It's great, isn't it?
You can record. So, does it record video or still?
Video and still.
Blimey.
Does it record it, or does the phone record it?
The phone records it, so
Phone
then you
records the
can
output of that,
transfer it. And again, this is, you were talking about EICRs earlier. I think it's been a race to the bottom as far as price is concerned. But I think what you are seeing now is the expectation, and again, it's the same as using our earlier Super Rod camera. When you actually do a proper EICR and you accompany it there with some video evidence of what you can see, some video evidence of what you've recorded with a thermal camera, all of a sudden, you're actually giving what the end client needs a lot more quantifiable information.
And also, this adds massive value to your EICR, doesn't it? So rather than just giving an EICR and that EICR has got a list of C1, C2s or C3s, to actually have, and this is why I gave it a C1, a C2 or a C3, because I've got one of these.
I think it's
great.
that explanation element of the ICRs that we've got to really crack.
Yeah.
To help the customer understand why this has been flagged up as a problem.
Yeah,
Now, it's not about scaring people with a thermal image, but you can show them an image and say, look, there's a hotspot there, and I believe it's this, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, it makes it, because I think when it is just in there in a report, and we've all been victim of this. You take your car for a service, and all of a sudden there's a $2,000 component somewhere that needs replacing, and you thought, well, it was driving, but the end consumer, as in the resident, whether it's a property owner or somebody owning a facility and everything, will have a lot more confidence when our customers as trade professionals can go in. They've done a detailed report, and your expectation when you get a report is, it can be verbal, it can be audio, there can be some video in there, and that confidence level that you're not having them over and just tucking them up for a bit of extra work.
To add to your EICR all the images or videos that come with this, and it's not extra cost to you, is it? No. So the fact that you're there anyway, you've seen something, you've tested, you found it, you could do this, you could do the visual inspection with this. You're doing it anyway, you're there.
You've got to be careful, because it's so small you could easily leave it after an interview, couldn't you? You could just leave it accidentally, just
leave it with two
forget to take it with you,
and
couldn't you?
Just disappear. After that, you could easily. Now, does it need an app?
It does need an app.
Need an app.
You download that from the Klein website. When you get it, there's just a QR code. So literally, you've got your phone. Bang.
So this is turning your phone that you use day in, day out. It turns your phone into
a thermal
imaging camera.
Take that into account. That takes it into a thermal imaging camera. Then you look at the inspection camera that you guys spoke about a while ago. When I first started Superrod, I wanted people to look at our product and treat it as valuable as their phone. So if they left the rods behind, they would actually turn the van round and go and get their set of rods. And that was my ambition back in 2000. And to be honest, people didn't care about the phones that much then.
I know there's a set of rods still stuck in the wall at 4 Glover's Lane. I had to unscrew the bottom one. To this day, I'm gutted that they're still there. So I would never go leaving one of these around, although that's what you might want to do, Malcolm. No. But this thermal imaging is actually something that is, without a doubt, value added, just not only for you guys out there, but for your clients. So if you are thinking about doing it, you've got to look at what camera you're going to get. Yeah. And something like this is an absolute fantastic no-brainer to add to your toolkit. It just looks superb.
I think
the key thing, everybody looks at the size of it, and the key thing for me was usability, because if I'd sat down with a group of electricians even 12 months ago and started to speak about thermography, they look at it as another level of science. They said, to be honest, that's a bit beyond me, mate.
Yeah, no,
but when I showed them this and they can plug it into the phone.
Well, you just set that up in 30 seconds? You plugged it into your phone, and it was on and it was ready to roll.
Yeah. And that's the way, we tell the guys, we go and look at a board, plug it into your phone, and just go and look at a board. Look at the breakers, and you'll see.
It's a great place to start with this. Well, Malcolm, thank you very much for bringing that along to play with. That's absolutely brilliant bit of kit. And it's endless, really, what it can add to you and your services for you and your clients. So thank you very much for doing that. For you listening to this one, if you've enjoyed this, don't forget, subscribe, like, share with your wider communities and your friends. And we'll hope to see you again on another Tech Talking podcast. Thank you.